You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
First and foremost, they got themselves a quarterback that, in my opinion, he is boom or bust. He doesn't necessarily provide a lot of certainty for the Orange in 2025, but at minimum, he can compete for the starting job, and that is Ricky Collins from LSU. And I highly doubt that the Orange are going to go after another quarterback in the transfer portal unless it might be some lower level. Either it's a project or it's someone who they think might be a backup for Syracuse in 2025. And here's why I believe this, all right? I think plan A all along was to get back Kyle McCord. That was plan A. Even if it was just a small chance, that was plan A, to get him back, which I think you and I can agree. If there's any chance you can get back Kyle McCord, you have to take it. You have to give yourself an opportunity, which it was out there, but Kyle McCord, he got the feedback to ultimately go to the NFL and not pursue a fifth year anymore. So that was plan A. What was plan B? Plan B was get a quarterback in the portal, kind of like Ricky Collins, a boom or bust transfer portal quarterback. They did try to go after other quarterbacks. Caden Salter was the big one from Liberty, who ultimately transferred to Colorado. But here's the thing with Caden Salter. He's got one more year of eligibility left, and he has started plenty of games in his collegiate career. There was no way Caden Salter was coming to Syracuse if there was a small chance that Kyle McCord could come back. You know why? Because there's no chance he was going to start over Kyle McCord. So he would waste his final year of eligibility being a backup? I find that hard to believe. And ultimately, he goes to Colorado where he'll be a favorite to start for them next season and play for Deion Sanders. So the Orange tried to go after maybe someone who could provide a little bit more certainty, but because they put all their eggs in on the plan A, let's get Kyle McCord back, they missed out on a guy like Caden Salter. Now, Ricky Collins makes a lot of sense when you're trying to get Kyle McCord back. And the reason is because Ricky Collins has 3 more years of eligibility remaining. So, in the unlikely event that Kyle McCord would have come back, if that were to have happened, then Ricky Collins could sit 1 year and still have 2 more years of eligibility remaining. Makes a lot of sense, right? But also, think about it this way. Let's say Kyle McCord did come back. Ricky Collins would compete for the backup job in 2025. And if he had won the backup job in 2025, he would have probably just been the starter in 2026. I don't think the Orange were going to go after a portal quarterback in 2026 because Kyle ultimately decided, I'm just going to go to the NFL. It moved up the timeline where they're going to have a quarterback competition in all likelihood between Ricky Collins, Jakari Williams, Luke Carney, and Rich Bellin. So that is a long way of me saying that the Orange are done at quarterback. They got themselves Ricky Collins from LSU, a former 4-star in 2023, and hopefully it'd be great if he could live up to the hype. And certainly throughout the entire offseason, we will have plenty of coverage on Ricky Collins as well as all of Syracuse's potential starting quarterbacks in 2025. All right. The next thing that Syracuse did a nice job of accomplishing was the defensive line. It was, I would say, a medium-ish need for the Orange heading into the offseason. And they got Chris Thomas from Marshall. Chris Thomas is not someone who is going to wow you with his sack numbers. And that's because he is an interior, run-stuffing defensive lineman. The Orange were one of the worst teams in the ACC at stopping the run in 2024. It wasn't necessarily all on the defensive line, but the defensive line certainly played a part of it. So a guy like Chris Thomas from Marshall, who's got plenty of experience, I think was a nice add for the Orange in the transfer portal. And now, if you look at their defensive line rotation, it actually looks pretty solid. You got Chris Thomas, as I just mentioned, but you also got Murad Watson, you got Rashard Perry, you got Dennis Jacquez, you got King Joseph Edwards, and there's others that I am leaving out there, but that's the point, right? There's a little bit more defensive line beef now in the system. So overall, the Orange have done a nice job, or at least have accomplished, getting a quarterback in the transfer portal. They needed one with or without Kyle McCord coming back. And they got a defensive lineman.